Good evening, and can I start by welcoming the Deputy Lieutenant, Honorary Freeman, Honorary Aldermen, past mayors, distinguished guests, councillors, and all others in attendance, either physically or watching online, to this special meeting of Eastbourne Borough Council. I am the Mayor, Councillor Rodihan. All councillors have been sent the agenda for this meeting, and additional copies have been placed on seats for guests. For councillors wishing to speak, please indicate by raising a hand and come to the microphone at the front of the room when called. Please note that this meeting is webcast. Apologies for absence, item 1. Can I ask the Head of Democratic Services to announce any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can confirm that I've received apologies. Diplock, Freebody, Maxted and Whippy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 2. Can I ask Councillor Shuttleworth to move his motion set out on page 1 of the agenda for the conferring of the title of Honorary Alderman to John Joseph Unger, and to speak to your proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and could I say to the Deputy Lieutenant, good to have you here today, and to Honorary Freeman, Honorary Aldermen, past mayors, distinguished guests, councillors, and all those watching. This is truly a very special occasion, and those who were expecting to see Councillor Diplock standing here tonight to move this motion may not be aware, but he tested positive yesterday for COVID, which is the reason he can't be with us, but he's obviously extremely disappointed not to be able to be here tonight. But that means it's my privilege and pleasure to propose this motion to my good friend of many years, over 30 years, to confer the title of Honorary Alderman on John Unger. Throughout his adult life, John has given service to the wider community, both in his professional work, where he worked with the YMCA and also working in adult social care, but also alongside all the work he's done in council service, both here at Eastbourne Borough Council, but also as an East Sussex County Councillor, where he's shown his passion to fighting for people, particularly for the most elderly, in the work he's done with adult social care, but also in dealing with problems for people across the community of all ages. During his service as an Eastbourne Borough Councillor, John gave many years of dedicated service here in Eastbourne, both as a strategic leader, fighting for improvements for the whole town, but also in helping many hundreds of people of all ages as part of his work as a local councillor, as well as pressing for improvements in the Old Town area, which I know he's extremely passionate about. But John's first served as councillor in Brighton in the 1980s, helping our former distinguished mayor, Janet Coles. I'm not sure if Janet is with us tonight. Janet Coles, who was elected in the Montpellier ward in Brighton. But since moving to Eastbourne in 1988, John has served as a councillor in firstly the former Roselands ward of the town, but most recently and for a number of years has become well known for his commitment and dedication to fighting for improvements in the old town where he lives. John has always been someone with enormous energy, enthusiasm and drive, and as well he's had great organisational skills. He's recognised across the Old Town ward, which he's represented with distinction, as someone who will always do what he can to help, regardless of any political persuasion. When John became active in the Eastbourne community, he was soon elected to serve on the town council and quickly recognised as someone with leadership ability. John served as chair of the Environment Committee at that time, the Planning Committee and the Personnel Committee, before taking over as leader of Eastbourne Borough Council in the 1990s. As chair of the Environment Committee, John steered through the first cycling plan, and even then he learned quite quickly just how tricky it can be to please everyone. Mr. Mayor, as I've already mentioned, Councillor Peter Diplock, John's great friend and Old Town colleague, had planned to be standing here moving this motion tonight. And John was going to describe his first meeting with John. Peter was going to describe his first meeting with John. So I think I'd like to just tell you a little bit about that, because I think it might resonate with one or two others in the audience today. What he said to me is that when he first met John some 6 years ago, there was a knock at the door, and John introduced himself to Peter, and first thing he said, he complimented him on his garden. Peter was a bit puzzled at that, because he thought his garden was a bit untidy, frankly, at the time, but he took the compliment. And then he noticed that the chap standing there was brandishing a very small bundle of leaflets. And John said, I wonder if you'd be kind enough to help me. I just want to get these leaflets delivered around your area, just the immediate area. Unfortunately, the regular deliverer is on holiday at the moment. Well, Peter, being, a very gracious, kind and helpful person, said, I'm sure as some of us have done, of course I'll help you. And at that moment, John's other hand came from behind his back with a rather larger bundle of leaflets added to the first bundle. And so began a great friendship between Peter and John, and indeed Anne. And the story goes on. Peter tells me that he's still waiting for that deliverer who lives in his road to actually come back from holiday. Well, I know Peter's not the only person to have been inducted into local politics in this way, but the other thing Peter was going to talk about tonight was John Ungar's drive and passion that he has for the community at his very heart. And this is something that many of us will have recognised in him. More than party political loyalties, which we all have, or many of us here have, but John has a deep and abiding love of his local community. Wherever he's lived, he's wanted to serve that community in whatever way he can. He's helped many hundreds of people through his dogged casework, improving their lives and finding solutions to problems. The dedication and single-mindedness of purpose he brings to helping people and achieving for his community remains an inspiration for all of us. But I know that John couldn't have achieved what he has achieved had it not been for the wonderful support he's had from his wife, Anne, who's done a brilliant job also. John has continued to work hard even through the illnesses that we know he's all had to face recently, but he's shown the same resolve to keep going and get things done. So, finally, before I hand over to my seconder, Colin, I just want to pass one more observation, because I've always known John to be a pretty ardent Arsenal football supporter. So perhaps when the seconder makes his comments, he might want to reflect on the fact that recently, John, I understand, has become a season ticket holder at Brighton and Hove Albion. I'll finish with the role of honorary alderman should be conferred on someone who, in the opinion of the council and the town that we all love and serve, has rendered eminent services to the town. John Joseph Ungar is no longer a member of this borough council, so it is appropriate, I think, now that we should all recognise John's work and indeed the eminent services that he's given to Eastbourne. And I think he is absolutely, truly deserving of this honour, which I commend to you in the motion tonight. Thank you.
I invite Councillor Belsey to second the motion and come to the microphone.
Mr. Mayor, Deputy Lieutenant, past mayors, honorary aldermen and freemen and guests. Fellow councillors as well, I suppose. Yeah, we do count. I guess you'd probably think I'd be the last person to stand here and second a motion honouring John as an honorary alderman. But over the years, I mean, I've seen John in both chambers here and in East Sussex. And I'm delighted to think that you are no longer going to Arsenal, but going to Brighton, John, and perhaps we'll meet on a train one day going over there, because I still hold my season ticket as well. But perhaps, you know, you might be able to cross the floor at the chamber now as well at East Sussex. That would be a real change of colour, wouldn't it? But we'll see how that goes. But politics and colours aside, John, I've always had a respect. I think we've both had a respect for each other. I think we're similar sort of people in the way we look at life. We like to help people. We like to get the job done, which is one of the most important things. You don't always, I appreciate that, but we do our best. And the other thing that John and I have in common is that we both, John worked for YMCA and I was a trustee for YMCA for many years in Eastbourne. John joined the council where, you know, most of it, I mean, Alan's taken all my, shall I throw it away, Mr. Mayor, because I've written it, but I'm not sure it's all relevant now. John joined the council in Roselands, you know that, 91 to 98, and again from 2011 to 2019. John moved to Eastbourne 34 years ago and loves living in Old Town, and one of his sons and family are close by now, and that's always handy, isn't it? And nice to have grandchildren in the area that you can see. Alas, mine do not. John has served on various roles on both borough and county and loves the environment. He's very proud of his achievements, which I agree he should be. In his first time on the council, on the Downs, and also the sea defence work that was started when he was in position with the environment team. He was, for a time, leader of Eastbourne Borough Council, and that's actually something I didn't know. That was in the spell when I wasn't about on the council. On his second spell, John was chair of planning, not an easy role, as Alan's already said. He also was lead member for community safety and regular meetings with Katie Bourne, who I do know quite well, I'm glad to say, which that must have been interesting conversations sometimes as well, I think. As he says, she not only survived the experience of having meetings with him, but also sent him a get well card when he was very unwell some few years back. I'll always remember John from some of the speeches in another place, up the A27, if you can get up the A27 nowadays. He could start a speech and everybody would be waiting for the but, because he always started his speech off in a really, and my colleagues from East Sussex are laughing over there, and I expect David's smirking as well. He always started his speech, and because John was in opposition, therefore the speech always started nicely, or seemed to, but then he got halfway through it and it was but, and then he'd get the knives out and start trying to cut into the flesh of the leader of East Sussex County Council. He didn't always come off on the right side, though, I'm glad to say. But it was always been fun. I think John is a guy that just wants to get the job done. He likes to just feel that he's helping other people and getting the job done. I've always felt that John was a gentleman in both senses, and was worried when we heard that he was very ill some time back. But the Lord decided it was not his time to go up to or down to wherever, but I'm sure it was up. And therefore, you made an amazing recovery, John. I was delighted that, as you know, I contacted you as well. But I was absolutely delighted to see the amazing recovery you made in bouncing back. Anyway, I'll just cut it there. Congratulations, John, on what is now history, I suppose, some of it. But you will be with us for a long time. You'll be entitled to attend the civic functions, etc., as an honorary alderman, and we look forward to that. So I'm delighted to second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Councillors, if any of you would like to speak to the motion, can you please put your hand up? Expected a Councillor Barbarinda, please come to the microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, all. Deputy Lieutenant, Mr. Mayor, Honorary Freeman, Honorary Alderman, past mayors, councillors, distinguished guests, friends. It is an honour to be speaking tonight in favour of this motion. And at the heart of this evening are the Nolan principles of standards in public life: selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty, and leadership. And these are a hot topic in chambers across the country at the moment, but I am really proud that in this chamber today, in our town, we are celebrating the very best of those standards in public life, demonstrated by my friend and colleague, John Ungar. And John has dedicated himself to our wonderful town since before I was born. He was first elected in 1991, I understand, and has served actually nearly 24 years as a councillor. If we look at his concurrent terms on the East Sussex County Council, which has been for 8.5 years, and Eastbourne Borough Council for 15 years. But these years, these numbers, they're more than just strokes on a tally chart. These represent impact had, communities supported, and lives changed. Now, never have I done a round of canvassing in Old Town without at least one person speaking to me about how John Ungar, their John Ungar, has helped them. And I think it would be true to say that every Old Towner knows someone helped by John. So much so, actually, it got quite extreme. A few years ago, I went for a night out in Brighton. And I was merry with a few friends, and we were getting the train back, and we're eating a kebab. And there was somebody sat on the train next to us who started talking with us. And we thought, oh, well, we're in Brighton, and we'll just have a good time. Do you know who this person started talking to me about? John Ungar. He overheard that we were from Eastbourne, and was asking a few questions, and then said that John Ungar was his neighbour, lived a couple of doors down. John, I think you sold a van to him, or indeed bought a van off him. Anyway, you're being spoken about beyond this town, and I'm sure even more so after this evening, hopefully if we confer on you the title of Honorary Alderman. And while I'm sad that John is no longer a colleague on this council, and I'm gutted that I missed John by just a couple of years on the council, I'm so chuffed that Eastbourne retains his services as a formidable county councillor for Old Town Ward, speaking up for local people in County Hall. And I'm also delighted, marked by this occasion today, that subject to the success of this motion, we could be locking in John Ungar's services to our town forever as an honorary alderman. Although we all know that John will never stop working for his community, grand titles or not. And all that's left for me to say, really, is that for all the reasons I've described and all the reasons we've heard so far, it's my privilege to support Councillor Shuttleworth's motion to confer on John Ungar the title of Honorary Alderman. And John, you're already entrenched into the fabric of the Eastbourne community, and it's befitting of your public service that your name will now be etched even deeper into Eastbourne history as one of our town's honorary aldermen. It's a pleasure to have worked alongside you. Thank you, John.
Anybody else? No. I will now put the motion to a vote.
What does Councillor Shuttleworth want to sum up?
Oh, yes, sorry. Can I ask Councillor Shuttleworth if you would like to sum up?
I think we've all heard the summing up in the speeches we've heard already, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So I will now put the motion to a vote by a show of hands.
All those in favour? That's unanimous, Mr. Mayor.
Unanimous. So can I now invite John Joseph Ungar to the stage to be presented with a certificate and a badge.
Thank you.
First, that's what you can wear forever.
Yes, it's lovely.
The little bag for it.
There you go.
Can I now invite Councillor Ungar to make an acceptance speech?
First, I'll say thank you. Mr. Mayor, Deputy Lieutenant, Honorary Freeman, Honorary Alderman, past mayors, esteemed guests, and guests, for those who aren't esteemed. But I'm looking around and I can't see any of them in attendance, so we can forget that bit. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming along tonight. You know, people say, oh, it's a real honour. It is actually a real honour, and when you stand here to talk about it, you actually you feel how honoured you are. I'd like to thank those people who've nominated me: Alan Shuttleworth, Colin Belsey. I'm sorry that Peter Diplock can't be here, but I believe he nominated me at a full council meeting. So thank you, Peter. And I think that reflecting on those people, all of them are held very highly or with great esteem in the council and in the community. So that deepens the honour that I have. I think they're brave souls for nominating me, because someone threatened to burn my house down the other year. And if they hear that these people have nominated me, they might be under the same threat. So there we go. Anyway, I'd like to thank those councillors who voted for me to receive this honour. And I want to thank all those councillors and officers with whom I worked during my time as a councillor, and to thank all those people who've made this event possible. That isn't easy, arranging these things. arranging diaries. I've been there, know that, and it shows with a little bit of hair I've got left. Now, I've invited people along tonight, some people. I can't invite everyone, or the hall wouldn't be big enough, because the people in Old Town are people I really, really would like to have been here. The other people I'd like to have been here were the residents of the old town, of the old Roselands ward. So I want to thank my guests for coming along tonight. One of them, my son Ian and his family, my sister Helen and her husband Alan, Stephen Lloyd and Shireen Maskell and Sarah Corrin. Others will be watching on the internet how things have changed. Okay. Now, as I've said earlier, I thank you very much, and I'm really humbled to be granted this honour. So I say thank you to you all for that. And I'd like to thank my mother. Now, I'm not going to emulate an Oscar winner by talking and thanking about their parents and everything, but I'm just going to talk about my mother in this instance. In the late 50s, I was in a I was a boarder in a prep school in Bexhill while my father was working in the States. On one of my mother's visits, she brought me to Eastbourne. We walked along the seafront, and I saw beautiful beaches and plenty of opportunities for a swim. My mother was impressed because the people were decent. We then went and had a nice lunch in a hotel, silver service. Being a young chap, I was quite impressed and thought how great that was. So, thank you, Mum. Our visit started my lifelong love of Eastbourne. Now, fast forward to 1979, 1978. Sorry, not 78. Sorry, I can't get my numbers right tonight. 1979/80, when I was working for the YMCA, running programs across the southeast of England. I came to Eastbourne to set up a project for young people here. I enjoyed working in Eastbourne, setting up that project, which was a great success. And the young people I met were such great young people. Eastbourne was reflected through them of their dynamism, wanting to get on, and their enthusiasm. So that made me even more in love with Eastbourne. At the time, I was living in Brighton, where I was elected to Brighton Borough Council. Now, that was in the 70s and 80s. And if you want to get involved in really hard politics, that was the time to have been a councillor in Brighton. There was militant on one side, and there was the National Front on the other side. And when I first stood, I had to have a police escort to go canvassing. So it shows you what a decent place Eastbourne is, because I can just go out and knock on doors and talk to people, and people are polite, encouraging, absolutely fantastic. In 1988, my wife and I decided to move to Eastbourne, where we have lived happily for the past 34 years, bringing up our two sons. One of my sons, Ian, lives with his wife, Alison, and the twins, Joseph and Emily, 8 doors up the road from us. My other son, John Paul, lives in Melbourne, so can't be here tonight. My first stint on Eastbourne Borough Council was when I was elected to represent the then Roselands ward, which is now part of St Anthony's and Devonshire wards. I had an interesting time ending up as leader, as has been said, and that was an experience that I don't wish to repeat. You can't keep everyone happy. In fact, you can make a lot of people angry with you. You can't say the right thing at the right moment. And if it wasn't for the fact that I had so many good friends on the council, I would have lost all my confidence. I can assure you that it was really, really an eye-opener. So I take my hat off to anyone who's been the leader of the council, particularly to David, who's been leader for so many years. Now, after my retirement from working for East Sussex County Council, I was elected for a second stretch on Eastbourne Borough Council by representing my home ward of Old Town. I met up with and served with many old friends and made new ones. I served for 4 years of this term as chair of the planning committee, a role which I learned an awful lot about our great town. It is amazing, the history of this town, and I found that so enlightening and invigorating, and gave me even more of a passion and a greater love for Eastbourne. In representing both Roselands and Old Town, I met many great residents who my mother would describe as very decent people. I did not seek re-election for a third term in Old Town as there are times when you need to hand over to new blood. So I'm really glad to see that those councillors who've come on have done such a good job and continue to fight, not just for Eastbourne, but also for the ward they represent, Old Town. Finally, and it really should have been firstly, I would like to thank my wife Anne and my 2 sons, Ian and John Paul, who supported me and put up with me so many years. I've come home and my wife said, "Oh, how's it all gone?" I said, "Fine, but I've got a little bit of a delivery to do now." And she said, "You can't go delivering, it's gone 9 o'clock at night." And I said, "Hold on, I've got some others I've got to do tomorrow." So she didn't throw my dinner at me. It was luckily still in the oven. But I would like to say to her, thank you, Anne, thank you. And very finally, I'd like to thank the residents of both Roselands and Old Town wards who put their faith and trust in me. Thank you for this honour. I will wear it with pride. Thank you.
Thank you, John. We now move on to item 3. So can I ask Councillor Belsey to move his motion set out on page 1 of the agenda for the conferring of the title of Honorary Alderman to Sandy Howell, and to speak to your proposal.
Mr Mayor, Deputy Lieutenant, past mayors, honorary aldermen and freemen and guests. It gives me great pleasure to propose the motion to Sandy Howlett, who I've known for quite a few years now. We won't start counting or anything, but it'd be delightful to see her made an honorary alderman as well this evening. Sandy served on Eastbourne Borough Council for 13 years, from 2002, when she polled 1,564 votes with a majority of 758. She had tried before in various places to gain a seat but never made it. She got very close to Ron Parsons, dear Ron, who was indefatigable and unbeatable basically, but she got within about 140 votes, 13 votes, sorry. Of actually beating him. So she still counts the votes in her dreams. And was duly elected to represent Ratton, which I consider the best ward in Eastbourne, of course, as I also represent Ratton. Sandy held office in various posts during her councillor career and was always respectful of officers in both opposition and ruling party, depending on always I've done a John here. Anyway, Sandy was a grafting councillor. She was never I think one could say Sandy didn't want to be a high flyer, but she just wanted to get the work done and get on with the work. She was very good on the doorsteps with people. She was very much a people person when it came down to it. One of Sandy's outstanding achievements outside the council is that this September she will complete 30 years as a governor of Mottcombe School, non-stop. That is absolutely, I find that absolutely amazing. It shows the dedication that Sandy's got, both as a councillor and continues in her retirement from the council. Sandy was born up north, as they say, in Bradford to be exact. I don't think she's got a season ticket though, John, to any football matches out there, but we'll see. But her mum and dad had the sense to move south to Eastbourne when she was 3. And Sandy went to Mottcombe School, which is probably why she's a governor there now. She's got, perhaps you were, was it when you were 8 you became a governor then, was it? Something like that. And other locals, and she went to other local schools. I think Ratton as well was one of the schools Sandy went to. So she knew the town well before she was elected. Sandy was always the get the job done quietly and efficiently person, and still is today because I know her in another role. Sandy worked in HR at Boots, the chemist, and when she married John in 1983 is when she really became, I think, saw the politics in her life starting. John's her husband John, that is, his grandfather is a past mayor of Eastbourne and also an honorary alderman, also called John, so it was Alderman John Howlett some many years back. Sandy John joined the family business at the Congress Hotel, and Sandy and John have also 2 grown boys. Strangely enough, one called John Paul, which that is who is here tonight, who I recognise still, although he has grown up a bit. And the other one, Nick, he's based in Bristol. Sandy had another achievement in 2010, which was a bit of a lifetime ambition. And she got a BA degree in history and politics from Sussex University, which really she'd been working for some time, as a lot of us know. As I said earlier, Sandy was one of those councillors who just got on with the job and was just the right person to call round to help someone with a problem, which she did regularly. Another love of Sandy's is, anybody that's ever been to the house, is dogs. Rescued dogs, actually, but not any old rescued dogs. Sandy's got a thing about Great Danes, and they actually take over her house sometimes. But and they even have their own settee, everybody. In the second-hand settees that have already been gnawed and nibbled and everything else, and they get chewed to pieces, but they do take the dogs. But anyway, Mr. Mayor, I won't rabbit on anymore. It's with great pleasure that I propose the motion that Sandy Howlett becomes an honorary alderman of Eastbourne. Thank you.
Councillor Tudd, can I ask you to second the motion and speak to your proposal?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, Deputy Lieutenant, Honorary Freeman, Honorary Alderman, past mayors, councillors and honoured guests. It gives me genuine pleasure to be able to second Sandy as an honorary alderman for Eastbourne. Now, I'm going to go back a little bit in time, Sandy, and you might correct me because, as you see, I'm getting a little bit older and my memory fades, but I've got a recollection that I've probably first met you when you worked at County Hall. Did you work at County Hall?
No, I worked at Eastbourne Borough Council.
I knew I'd met you somewhere before you became a councillor.
I worked at Eastbourne Borough Council between 1973 and 74. Then I did go to work at Eastbourne County Council.
I thought so. My memory serves me correctly. You've given me renewed confidence now. So I wondered whether I should check that out before saying it. So I have actually known Sandy for a considerable amount of time. And then, of course, I met her again when she became a councillor for Ratton. And she served with distinction during that period of time. She was a very diligent councillor. She served as deputy leader of her group to David Arkin, and she served on as the shadow cabinet member for housing. And housing's not an easy area to take on. It's one where you get a lot of people contacting you with some very, very difficult stories and very intense problems. So anybody who's worked in that role, either as part of the administration or lead member for the opposition, really deserves our respect. She served also on, if I remember again correctly, did work on the Eastbourne Park project, and that's something which will continue to flourish and is the lifeblood of the centre of our town, the lungs, the heart of Eastbourne. She's been ably supported by John as well. One of the things that Sandy always did was she would always attend the extra events that we have to, I say we have to, we don't have to, do we? The things we choose to go to, which we have the opportunity to represent the council and the town. And John, thank you for your support in that respect. I'm going to, times like this are always good times to just sort of tell one or two secrets. Just watching Sandy's face to see if see how worried she is. But she and I have something in common. Those of you who have attended council meetings may know that at council meetings we sometimes sit there eating sweets. Now, if anybody thinks that those are funded by the council taxpayer, they're wrong. They're actually generously supplied by my colleague Margaret Bannister. And Margaret buys bags of jelly babies and wine gums. And the thing that Sandy and I have in common is we always used to swap them round, so we got the jelly babies. Now, I got the jelly babies because I've got to tell you, when I've got wine gums in my mouth, I can't talk. And I do tend to spend quite a bit of time at council meetings talking. Sandy, I have it on very good authority, used to swap them round because if there were any left, she'd take them home for John. And I don't blame her at all for that. Our partners put up with an awful lot on our behalf, and if the price of that is a jelly baby, John, you come very cheaply, but Sandy, well done for doing that. You're, of course, as Colin has said, following in a family tradition for the Howletts, not only as a councillor, but as an alderman. You served the people of Ratton with distinction, and that's something to be proud of. Being an honorary alderman, as John has said, is an honour. It's the second highest honour that this council can bestow upon anybody. And I believe you're truly deserving of that honour. This is, of course, a ceremonial event, and we bestow that honour on you this evening, hopefully, as part of the ceremony. There is, of course, another element to this, and that's the initiation event for new aldermen. I don't know if anybody's told you a great deal about that, or indeed whether they've told John a great deal about that. Probably best I don't say too much, but let me just say that it involves raising oodles of cash for the Mayor's charity and a really deep dive into Chris Jordan's dressing up box. But we'll tell you more about that on another occasion. But for tonight, you're a truly worthy recipient of the honour of Honorary Alderman, and I'm sure that the vote will be a unanimous one. Congratulations.
Councillors, if you would like to speak, please put your hand up, and then you will be called to the microphone.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Bannister.
Councillor Bannister.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to do a Councillor Belsey now and say I wasn't actually going to say anything tonight, but I couldn't let Sandy go without saying something. She came onto the council a couple of years before me, and when I became a member in 2004, she was lead member for the Housing, Health and Community Services, as it was called then. A year later, I became the opposition lead for that, and we worked together on that. 2007, when unfortunately Conservatives lost and we won, I kept that role as lead member, and Sandy became my counterpart as deputy, as opposition lead. And can I just say that we have always worked so well together. We always got on well at meetings, and we had a mutual respect for each other, whatever we felt about anything. And I was really privileged to work with you. And John, I always sent an extra bag of sweets home with Sandy for you. And I hope she always gave them to you, because I know what it's like to have a husband at home. We both had... we both have husbands that stayed in the background, but we appreciate all they do, and I know she appreciated what you do. So well done, Sandy. You deserve it. Thank you.
Can I ask Councillor Belsey if he would like to sum up at the end? Thank you. I will now put the motion, which is by a show of hands. Can you please, in favour, please raise your hands.
That's unanimous, Mr. Mayor.
That is once again unanimous. And can I ask Sandy to come to the stage where you will get your certificate and badge. Thank you. And Alderman Sandy Howlett can now invite you to the microphone.
Good evening, everybody. May I just call you all distinguished guests, and thank you very much for attending. This has been a complete honour. I am quite overwhelmed. I'm very lucky that I get to speak last, because actually everybody said lots of things that I was going to say, and I'm not going to repeat them. But I would actually just like to say that being a councillor was a very, very enjoyable experience. I was very glad I was able to do it. But there are a few people that I would just like to say thank you to in particular. I suppose when you first become a councillor, it's quite bewildering. And I'm sure anybody that's become a councillor will appreciate going into the town hall, as we always used to do in those days. It's quite a lot to try and pick up. And I was very grateful for Peter Finnis and the two Katies when I first became a councillor for their very, very generous advice and help, because actually it does make life a lot easier. I was actually going to mention Margaret Bannister and the sweets, because actually I think that's an absolute example of how local politics should be about us all working together. And it was a very kind gesture which we all appreciated, particularly John, but actually we all appreciate it. And thank you, Margaret, because that is a very generous, kind thing that you do every time. Thank you. I'd like to mention David Elkin, funnily enough. When he became leader of the group in 2007 and I became his deputy, obviously we had quite a mountain to climb, and actually David's dedication and enthusiasm helped me become the better councillor that I was then. And actually thank you, David, because actually your example was truly exceptional, and I really thank you for that. I'd like to thank Colin, firstly for his kind words. That was humbling, to put it mildly, but also for actually being an incredibly good board colleague. We're part of a team. We always were a good team. And Barbara, who's actually watching by webcam, she gave me the very best piece of advice, I think, when I first became the councillor, is that if the meeting's in the courtroom, dress up warmly, because it's always cold in there. But as a team, we worked really well. And I think Colin's example of his dedication to his role both as a county councillor and a ward councillor is a true example, and it certainly gave me enthusiasm to carry on. I'd also finally like to say thank you to all my guests and all the distinguished people that are here tonight, and to wish my family who supported me the very best too, because actually without my family it would have been very difficult. John became a very dab hand at cooking dinner when I phoned and said, I'm on the way home. But thank you all for attending. Thank you to my guests for coming tonight. There are a few that unfortunately are not well and I had to stay at home. But thank you to those of you who are able to be here. And thank you very much, Eastbourne Borough Council, for this very, very, very special honour. I am truly moved. Thank you.
The next scheduled meeting of for the Borough Council is the full council meeting on the 23rd of February at 6 p.m. The agenda is now complete, and I close the meeting at, I can reach it, 6:55. After I and the Deputy Lieutenant have left the room, I would invite you to proceed to the Mallory Room for a drinks and finger buffet reception. Thank you all for coming to this special occasion. Congratulations to our two new aldermen, and good night.